Of the hundreds of stories I've shared on this channel, today's story easily ranks in the top 5 most distressing ones I've ever covered. Now, don't worry, there's no graphic footage or disturbing images shown. But still, there's a deeply upsetting sequence at the end. So please, viewer discretion is advised. Before we dive in, if you're into the strange, the dark, and the mysterious, delivered in a gripping story format, you're in the right place. That's what we do here. We upload once or twice every week. So if that sounds like your thing, go ahead, take the like button hostage and make it wash your dishes while wearing a really long sleeve shirt. But don't let them roll the sleeves up. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never miss a weekly upload. Alright, let's get into today's story. It's 1986. Tom Hawks is 39 years old, a proud father of 2 teenage boys. He'd been married once, to their mother, but the marriage didn't last. That year, Tom and his sons were at a local chili cook-off in Newport Beach, California. Tom's scanning the crowd when suddenly, he sees her. A stunningly beautiful woman. Someone he's never seen before. And without even realizing it, he just starts staring. He stares so long, the woman actually notices. She looks up, smiles just a little, blushes, then looks away. Tom's completely embarrassed. He just got caught. So, trying to play it cool, he thinks, all right, man, time to go over there. And this guy, ruggedly handsome, muscular, with a solid mustache, he strides right across the lawn, walks up to her, and introduces himself. She's all smiles. Her name's Jackie. She's 29 and single. And from the moment they meet, the two of them just click. They fall in love. Madly. And a few years later, in 1989, they get married. In front of 150 friends and family. After the wedding, Jackie moves in with Tom and his 2 boys. And even though the boys' biological mother is still alive, they start calling Jackie Mom. Because she earned it. She lived with them. Cared for them. She was kind. She was devoted. She gave them her heart. Now Jackie had her own painful past. At just 22, she survived a horrific motorcycle accident. The internal injuries left her unable to have children. And she always dreamed of being a mother. So when she got this chance, this second shot at motherhood, she gave it everything she had. Ye Raha Apka Part 1. Bilkul plain scripted format main. Lekin emotions or voiceover flow maintained high. Shakriya. Apka next Parpi Mil Gaya. Nache Dia Gaya script Bilkul plain format. Main rewrite Kia Gaya high. Emotions or human voiceover tone kusath. Lekin Bina Jishi points ya headings ko. Kahani ka structure or meaning Bilkul Wesa High Raka Gaya High Jays Apnkava. They were asking for about $500,000 for their yacht, and not long after the ad went live, this young couple, who had apparently saved up some money, offered to buy it. Tom and Jackie were thrilled. They immediately called their 2 sons to share the good news, that the yacht had a buyer and the sale would be finalized in just a few days. They told them, "We'll be in touch soon." So the sons waited. They expected a follow-up call from their parents any day. But days went by, and there was nothing. No call. No message. They tried calling, but their parents didn't pick up. And that was strange. Tom and Jackie were not the kind of people to suddenly go quiet. Especially not with their family. Something felt off. When Tom's brother Jim, a retired police chief, heard about this sudden silence, his instincts kicked in. He got in his car and drove straight to Newport Beach, California. Maybe, he thought, the sale hadn't gone through yet. Maybe the couple was still on the yacht. Either way, he needed to check. Jim brought a friend with him. When they arrived at the marina, they walked down the dock toward the boat, the well-deserved. From where they stood, it didn't look like anyone was aboard. But as they got closer, Jim noticed a few things that just didn't sit right. There were lines hanging over the side of the yacht, ropes that should have been stowed away. Tom was known for being meticulous. Everything on that yacht was always in perfect order. He would never have left lines draped like that. Not unless he was still on board. But he wasn't. Jim looked further. Some of the tarps that covered control panels had been removed, but not put back. That wasn't like Tom or Jackie either. And then, there were dirty towels sticking out of one of the portholes. The more Jim and his friend looked around, the more they felt. This doesn't feel like Tom and Jackie's boat anymore. It looked like someone else had taken over, and they didn't care for it the way Tom and Jackie did. Maybe, Jim thought, the sale had gone through. Maybe the new owners just didn't have the same standards. Jim took out his business card, scribbled a message on it, and left it on the boat. It said he was looking to speak with the new owners because his brother and sister-in-law had sold them this yacht, and now they were missing. Please give me a call. As Jim and his friend were walking away from the dock, Jim's phone rang. He picked it up. It was a young woman, 21 years old. Her name was Jennifer DeLeon. She said she found Jim's card on her yacht. And yes, she and her husband had recently bought the well-deserved from the Hawks. She also told Jim something strange. They hadn't been able to get in touch with Tom and Jackie either. After they took possession of the yacht, they realized there were a few controls they didn't know how to operate, and they were hoping Tom and Jackie could help explain them. Jennifer also said there were a few personal items of the Hawks still left behind, stuffed in drawers. She wanted to return them, but no matter how many times they called, nothing. Jim asked her, "When was the last time you or your husband actually saw Tom and Jackie?" Jennifer said, "The day we finalized the sale. We handed them the money, watched them get into their car, and drive away." Jim asked, "Did they say where they were headed?" Jennifer replied, "Not really. Most of our conversations were business. But Tom did mention, a couple of times, that they were planning to buy a house in Mexico, somewhere right near the Arizona border. They wanted to be close to their son because he was about to have a baby." Jim thanked her and asked, "If you hear from them, please call me." Jennifer replied, "Of course, and same to you. If you hear from them, let me know." When the call ended, Jim stood there, uneasy. Something wasn't adding up. Then he remembered someone. A woman named Patricia. Tom and Jackie had hired her a couple of years earlier because they knew internet access would be unreliable while living on the boat. So Patricia, who was also a friend, helped them pay their bills and handle their finances. Jim called her. "Have you heard from Tom or Jackie recently?" he asked. Patricia said, "No, I haven't." So Jim explained the situation, then asked, "Can you check if they deposited any large amount recently? Just days ago, they would have received close to $500,000. Patricia checked. "No," she said. "There's been no deposit." She and Jim tried to make sense of it. Why wouldn't they deposit such a large sum of money right away? It didn't make sense. When Jim hung up the phone, he had a pit in his stomach. He knew something was wrong. He called the Newport Beach Police Department and officially reported Tom and Jackie Hawks as missing. The first thing the police did was look into the new buyers, the DeLeons. And it didn't take long for red flags to appear. Skylar DeLeon, Jennifer's 25-year-old husband, was a convicted felon. Armed robbery. He had served time. That alone made the police suspicious. But the fact that the DeLeons were the last people known to have seen Tom and Jackie, that made them persons of serious interest. So they sent one of their detectives to the dock to take a closer look at the yacht. Shakriya, Apka script ka, Yahisabi mil gaya, coffee intense or crucial turning point hi kahani ka. Nache main isko natural human voiceover style, main rewrite kia high, bina jishi bullets ya headings ku. Lekin proper emotional or realistic tone ku sath, jays aap cha rahi hain. The detective headed down to the dock, just to take a look, see if anything looked unusual. They walked onto the floating section and made their way right up alongside the well-deserved. From the outside, it didn't seem like anyone was on board. But as the detective glanced through one of the windows, something caught their eye. Inside the boat, it looked like there was a bloody handprint. That was enough. The police quickly secured a search warrant, and within hours, the yacht was swarming with officers, searching every inch. But it turned out the handprint wasn't blood at all. It was just rust. And besides that, there wasn't anything significant on board. No sign of Tom. No sign of Jackie. The police were frustrated. They had no real leads. So they reached out to Skylar DeLeon, the man who had bought the yacht, and told him to come into the station and explain exactly what happened the last time he saw the Hawks. Skylar came in willingly, cooperated fully. He told detectives that he had seen an ad in a fishing magazine for the yacht, and he contacted Tom Hawks to say he was interested. The two met up and went on a sea trial, basically a test drive for a boat. During that trip, Skylar said he told Tom he liked the yacht and wanted to buy it. Then, on November 15th, Skylar showed up at the marina parking lot, along with his pregnant wife, their young daughter, a notary public, and a friend who came along as a witness. Tom and Jackie arrived too. And right there in that parking lot, Skylar and his wife handed Tom a suitcase full of cash. Then, with the notary present, everyone signed the paperwork, transferring ownership of the boat. Tom and Jackie took the money, got into their SUV, and drove away, presumably heading to Mexico. When the police asked how he could afford such an expensive yacht, Skylar said that back in the 90s, he had been a child star. Well, sort of. He had worked as an extra on Power Rangers, the TV show, and from that, he claimed he had saved up some money. But then, mid-sentence, Skylar stopped himself and said, "You know what? That's not the truth." He then confessed. The real reason he had that money was because he had stolen it. That robbery he had been convicted for? It wasn't just a random crime. He had stolen drug money from a kingpin, and before he was caught and sent to prison, he hid the cash. Then, when he got out of jail, he went back, retrieved it, and had been holding on to it ever since. But the money was hot. He couldn't spend it as it was. He needed to launder it. That's what the yacht was for. By purchasing the boat with stolen cash, then reselling it, he could turn dirty money into clean money. The police were stunned. Skylar had just admitted to a serious federal crime, money laundering, right there in the interview room. But since he was being honest and helpful with the investigation, they told him they wouldn't charge him for that. Not yet. So they let him go. Afterward, police also interviewed his wife Jennifer, the notary public, and the friend who was present during the final sale. All three gave nearly identical accounts. Tom and Jackie got the money, signed the papers, and drove away. The only thing that varied was how the Hawks were behaving that day. Skylar said Tom seemed anxious, even paranoid, about having all that cash. But the notary said Tom and Jackie seemed completely normal. With no solid evidence and nothing suspicious turning up, the investigation started to stall. The police were stuck. So they turned to the media. They put out a bulletin with pictures of Tom and Jackie and their SUV and asked the public to call in if anyone had seen them. It worked. A few days later, a couple living in Mexico called. They told police, "The Hawks SUV is parked across the street from us, right now." Authorities, both Mexican and American, rushed to the location. They raced to the house where the SUV was parked, hoping to find Tom and Jackie, or at least someone who knew where they were. But when they knocked on the door, a man answered, someone they didn't recognize. He looked confused. They asked him, "Whose SUV is that outside?" He said, "Oh, that's my friend's car." They asked, "Is your friend Tom or Jackie Hawks?" He said, "No, who's that?" The SUV, he said, belonged to Skylar DeLeon. That was it. Skylar had lied. He had told police that Tom and Jackie drove off in their SUV. But now it was clear that wasn't the truth. Because somehow, after they supposedly left, Skylar had ended up with their vehicle and given it to someone in Mexico. That same day, police in Newport Beach brought Skylar back in, using the on-record money laundering confession to arrest him. With him in custody, they searched his house, and what they found confirmed everything they feared. Inside, they discovered multiple items that belonged to Tom and Jackie: laptops, cameras, personal effects, things they never would have just left behind on the boat. Still, Skylar insisted he was innocent. He claimed it was all just a misunderstanding. Jennifer stood by him, even went on talk shows, saying that Skylar had nothing to do with Tom and Jackie's disappearance, and that they were just as concerned about them as everyone else. But police weren't buying it. They knew Skylar was hiding something, so they decided to go back and re-question the others, starting with the notary and the witness who were supposedly there for the sale. They brought the notary in again, a woman named Kathleen Harris. She had no criminal record and had been a respected notary for years. Once again, she said the same thing. She witnessed the sale, the Hawks signed the papers, took the money, and drove off. But this time, under intense questioning, Kathleen finally broke. She confessed. She had never met Tom or Jackie in her life. Skylar had paid her, in cash, to backdate documents that had already been signed. She had no idea what actually happened to the Hawks. Now the police turned to the other witness, a man named Alonzo McCain. They brought him in and asked him the same questions. At first, he repeated the same old story. They handed over the cash, signed the papers, drove off. But then police stopped him. They told him the notary had already confessed. They knew he was lying. Alonzo froze. Thank you. That was an intense, tragic, and horrifying part of the story. Below is the natural, voiceover-style rewrite of this final section of the case. Clean, emotional, without headings or points, and structured exactly like a professional true crime narrator would deliver it. Alonzo and a third man Skylar had brought in for this so-called job arrived at the dock parking lot with him. The third man, tall, built, and intimidating, was John Kennedy, a longtime Southern California gang member. But none of them were there to finalize any sale. That was never the plan. They were there for a sea trial, a test drive of the yacht, something Tom and Jackie had agreed to. When Tom and Jackie pulled up, Tom, a former probation officer, someone who'd spent years around convicts and criminals, immediately got a bad feeling. He took one look at the three men and didn't like what he saw. He was suspicious, cautious. You could see it in the way he hesitated, even began mentioning the idea of rescheduling. Skylar picked up on this. He could see Tom was uneasy. So, trying to regain control, Skylar stepped away and made a call to his wife, Jennifer. She wasn't far. Just a few minutes later, she pulled into the lot holding their 1-year-old daughter. As soon as Jackie saw the baby, her entire demeanor changed. She was immediately drawn to her, smiling, holding her, laughing with Jennifer, who seemed kind and sweet and completely harmless. Jackie relaxed, and as Tom watched her warm up, he began to relax too. Before long, he was telling Skylar, "You know what? Let's do it. Let's go for the sea trial." The five of them, Tom, Jackie, Skylar, John, and Alonzo, climbed aboard the well-deserved. But right before they left, Jennifer said she couldn't come. The baby was upset, and she needed to take her home. That, too, had been part of the plan. She wasn't coming because she had already played her part. She had helped make Tom and Jackie feel safe. With the Hawks now fully committed, the yacht pulled away from the dock and made its way toward open water. Tom was piloting the boat, and after they had gone far enough out that no one could see land in any direction, Skylar and John approached him. They told Tom they wanted to show him something below deck. So Tom followed them down to the bedroom area. Alonzo and Jackie stayed upstairs in the kitchen, which was right above the bedroom. Suddenly, they heard a loud commotion coming from below. It was the sound of a struggle. Tom was being attacked. That was Alonzo's cue. Without hesitation, he turned to Jackie, who hadn't yet grasped what was happening, and grabbed her. He forced her to the ground, pulled her hands behind her back, and snapped on a pair of handcuffs. Jackie was stunned, trying to make sense of what was going on, but it all happened too fast. Just moments later, Skylar and John came back up the stairs, but Tom wasn't with them. They grabbed Jackie, dragged her below deck, and threw her onto the bed. Tom was already there, handcuffed, lying on his back. Jackie saw him, looked straight at Skylar, and begged for answers. "Why are you doing this to us?" she asked. "We just met your wife. I held your baby. Please, all we want is to go home to our family, to our grandchildren." Skylar ignored her. Cold, unmoved. He simply turned to Alonzo and told him to tape their mouths and eyes. Then Skylar went back upstairs and piloted the yacht further out, heading to the deepest part of the ocean. Down below, in that bedroom, Alonzo saw something he would never forget. Despite the fear, despite being bound and gagged, Tom managed to pull his hand up just enough to comfort his wife. He was stroking Jackie's hand, whispering, "It's going to be okay. No matter what happens, we'll be together." Eventually, the boat stopped. Skylar had reached the deepest point. He called down to the others and told them to bring Tom and Jackie up to the deck. When they got there, Skylar forced them, at gunpoint, to sign over all ownership paperwork for the yacht. He also had them sign documents giving him access to their financial accounts. Jackie, in what may have been one final attempt to leave a clue behind, misspelled her own last name on the forms. She left out the S, something she never would have done by accident. A clear sign that she was under duress. Once the papers were signed, the three men led Tom and Jackie to the back of the yacht. Skylar looked at Alonzo and told him to go get the anchor. At that moment, the Hawks knew exactly what was coming. Jackie started pleading again, begging them to stop, to let them go home, to just let them live. Tom broke free from John just long enough to kick Skylar hard in the groin. But it didn't last. John tackled them both, and the attackers resecured them. Tom and Jackie were placed back to back, their handcuffs connected to each other. Then Alonzo came dragging the heavy anchor across the deck. Skylar took the long chain attached to it and found the far end, the bitter end. He bent down and tightly fastened it to their handcuffs. Once it was secure, Skylar stood up, grabbed the anchor with both hands, and heaved it over the side. As it hit the water, Tom and Jackie would have heard the rattling of the chain, link after link being ripped off the boat, flying through the railing, racing toward the ocean floor. Then the chain pulled tight. The force yanked them toward the side of the yacht. Jackie's head slammed into the side of the boat with a crack that Alonzo would later describe as sickening. And then they were gone, dragged into the cold black ocean. Alive, fully conscious, and falling 3,500 feet below. Alonzo would later tell police that as soon as the couple disappeared into the water, Skylar let out a loud woo-hoo and ran to the edge of the boat like a giddy child. He leaned over, grinning and laughing, watching the last bubbles disappear from the surface. Then, he just turned around, still smiling, and headed back to the cockpit, and piloted the boat back to the dock. Jennifer wasn't there, but she was just as involved. In fact, the entire plan had been her idea. She wanted money, more money, and she saw the Hawks and their yacht as the way to get it. That moment in the parking lot, showing up with the baby, making everything feel safe, that had all been calculated. She knew what was going to happen once they got on board. And while Skylar was out at sea, before, during, and after the murders, he was calling Jennifer, giving her updates, asking her for advice. But perhaps the darkest moment came later. Police searched Skylar and Jennifer's home. And inside, they found Tom and Jackie's personal video camera, the same one they had used to document their sailing adventures, the same one they had with them on the yacht. Police played the tape. It started with Jackie. She was walking through the well-deserved, narrating as she filmed. She talked about how this would probably be one of the last times she and Tom would be on their beloved boat. But she was happy, hopeful. They were excited to be selling it, and even more excited about becoming grandparents. And then, the tape cuts. Suddenly, it jumps ahead. Now it's Skylar and Jennifer. At Thanksgiving. Laughing, eating, playing with their daughter. The same tape. They had recorded over the Hawks' last memories, with their own. No remorse. No hesitation. Just evil. Eventually, Alonzo was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He had struck a deal by telling police everything. Jennifer was given life without the possibility of parole. And both Skylar and John Kennedy were sentenced to death.